Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1 on this channel. And on ETCG1, we don't do auto repair videos. We discuss things that are repair related. If you want repair videos, I'm going to post a link in the description to my Eric the Car Guy channel. You can head over there and get as many auto repair videos as you can possibly want. Well, I keep making them anyway. Last week I spoke a little bit about should you become an automotive technician? In the comments, there was a lot of stuff that came up about education and the auto repair field. So I decided to maybe address that issue. So in this video, we're going to talk about should you get an automotive education if you are considering becoming an automotive technician? Well, there are a couple different camps to this. One camp says you got to have an automotive education to become an automotive technician. The other camp says that all you need is a set of tools and a willingness to work, and you're good to go. I know those are gross generalizations, but I think they cover the gist of what the two opposing viewpoints might be. And I say opposing because that's kind of the way I see them. Because the people that feel that they don't need an education feel that they don't need an education. The people that do feel you need an education do feel you need an education. Personally, I'm of the camp that I feel that you do need an automotive education in order to be successful as an automotive technician. I'm not saying you can't become an automotive technician without an automotive education, but I would argue that your prospects are limited as far as your job, as far as what you will be entrusted with. I'm going to take this back to a video that I did some time ago about think like a boss. And I want you to put yourself in that position. I want you to put yourself in the position to where you are going to hire a new employee. And maybe you have a choice between person X who just graduated from school, did relatively well, maybe not an A student, but did pretty darn good. Did good enough to pass some ASEs, and maybe all they need is a little more work experience and they're ASE certified. Many automotive programs, the time you spend within that program, like for instance, I'll take myself as an example. When I was in school, the 18-month program that I attended was good for 1 year worth of experience toward my ASE certification. For those of you not familiar, in order to become ASE certified, not only do you have to pass the test, but you also have to prove that you've had at least 2 years worth of actual work experience in order to receive that certification. Many times, the time that you spend in school counts towards that, such as in my case. Even though it was 18 months that I spent in school, it only counts as a year, but I'll take that year because that only means that I need to get a year into it when I'm out in order to finish up my certification and get my ASE certifications. This makes my employer happy, and hopefully it makes my paycheck get a little bigger. That would be great, don't you think? If you did not get that education, then you have that full 2 years to look forward to in order to get that ASE certification. And if you're the type of person that says, I don't need no stinking education, you might not even care whether or not you have any kind of ASE certification. I'm not saying that ASE is the do-all, end-all of certification, and I'm not saying that because you're ASE certified it means you know anything, because as many people have argued, and I somewhat agree with, ASE means really that you can pass a test, a multiple choice test at that. Does that prove that you're a capable technician? Not necessarily, but it does prove that you have put the time in and you have studied and you do have a basic working knowledge of many of the things that you might encounter on the job. Let's come back to the employer. You're the boss. You're interviewing two prospective technicians for your shop. You need to bring somebody else in. Technician A is fresh out of school, just like we talked about, going to get their ASE certifications. Technician B has been working on the side, wherever, has proven that they have, like, let's say about 3 to 5 years worth of work experience. And you're going to look at these two people and you're going to scratch your head and say, okay, who's the better deal? Well, I think ultimately, if you're just going to look at them on paper, if you're just going to look at these people on paper, one person shows nothing but experience, and even that experience is kind of spotty because that may not necessarily be shop experience. They may be looking for their first job as a professional technician, so they have zero work experience as a professional technician. They may be able to prove and talk about all the great things that they did in their shop and their friend's shop and who they were helping out or what they were doing, but there's nothing on paper to back that up. All you have is their words saying that I'm good for this, I have these tools, and this is what I'm prepared to come in and do for you. Whereas Technician A has on paper proof that they went to school, that they invested in it, that they have a desire to become as good a technician as they can possibly be. Now, I've really talked up Technician A. I realize that. And we've talked about in the past how experience does matter a great deal when it comes to working as a technician. I myself was a straight A student in school, and I did really, really well. I got out, graduated top of my class. I was very proud of that fact. But as soon as I got out into an actual working shop and a dealership, I learned that there was a whole lot to learn yet. My learning was just beginning. Now, I still had all that back knowledge. I still had all that stuff that I put together and gathered with the time that I was in school. But once I got into that dealership situation, there was a whole new set of things to learn. There was the flat rate system for one, and learning how to work efficiently and work within that system so that I could make a paycheck. There was also just how to deal with customers and service writers and the politics of everybody else that was there. Not to mention how to actually work on a car. Like you got your friend's car, your own car, something like that. Nah, you don't care. You just pull it in, you start working on it. Once you actually are in the shop and you're working for somebody and you pull in a customer's car, there's a whole different feeling. You're in somebody else's vehicle now, and they have made you responsible for those repairs. That takes a little bit of getting used to. You can't rule that out. You can't rule out experience. But I'm going to say that the person with the education is the person that I want to hire because they have demonstrated to me that they have a willingness, a desire to better themselves, to work towards the profession. The person who doesn't have the automotive education, they're an unknown. Now, I may be able to get them in cheap, and I may be able to keep them down, and this brings me to my point. If you don't have an automotive education, and you do get a new job, and you do get a job working as a technician, I'm going to say you're going to make less. And I would say that you're going to be okay with that because you need the chance to prove yourself. So you're going to sell yourself short so that you can get into the profession. I don't agree with this approach for a lot of different reasons. But most notably, as the employer, I'm looking at you as a liability. You're someone who is an unknown. I don't know that you have proven or haven't proven that you have the skills to do the job. You might have the tools, you might say you have the skills, but until you're actually in there, working in my shop, I don't know what you're capable of. And by the time I find out, I may be thousands in the hole because of something that you screwed up because you didn't know any better. Not because you were trying to screw it up, not because you weren't capable, but just because you're like, oh, I think I know how this works. And you go in and you do something and oops, thousands of dollars later, let's be fair, hundreds of dollars later, my employer's in the hole, or me as the employer, I'm in the hole because I hired this person. So I'm going to hire them in at a lower rate than the person I would hire at that's fresh out of school. I'm just going to do that. Why? Most likely because I can. I'm going to say that you probably can. Because, like I said, if you're just coming in off the street, you have nothing to back up what you're saying. You just have words. And if you want to prove something to me, I'm going to hire you at a lower rate than I would hire the other guy that's got, some schooling under his belt, some kind of, piece of paper that says that they have completed an automotive program. Now, I'm sure some of you are out there saying, you know what, Eric, I'd love to go to school, but I can't afford it. Well, you're probably right. However, once again, using me as an example, I went to school, the application fee just to get into the school was $10. I didn't have $10. But I did have $10 in change. And I quite literally rolled up quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies so that I could get that $10 that I needed in order to get the application put through so I could get into that school. The financial aid department stepped in, helped me get my financial house in order, helped me get through school, helped make everything else happen. I was poor enough to where the state covered my tuition. So all I had to do was go to school. I still had student loans from a prior school that I went to. I still had other bills to pay. But as far as the schooling, I was broke enough to where I qualified for assistance. You should look into the same thing. You may qualify. If you're that broke, then you may qualify for a program that could get you through school, or at least give you part of your education. So don't rule that out. I mean, there were still other things I had to pay for. It's my books, my tools, and all that other kind of stuff. However, the majority of my education was covered by the state because I was destitute. That's not the case now. And I did pretty well as a technician, and I don't regret one day that I spent in school or the effort that I made towards my automotive education. Even now, some might argue that it meant nothing the minute I walked into that first job. In some ways, it did mean nothing. But having that backstory, if you will, gave me the insight to where when I was working on a vehicle, I didn't necessarily need to call up the guy next to me and say, hey, I need help with this. I don't understand how to, diagnose an EGR problem. It wasn't like that. I wasn't afraid to go out on a limb and actually start working. In fact, in the end, there were some things that my coworkers learned from me and what I had brought from school, because they'd been working in their jobs for years. So they had not been exposed to any kind of schooling. Well, maybe schooling through the dealership that was rather specific, but there were things that I brought to the table that they hadn't necessarily thought of, just because I had just come from that educational environment. They taught me way more. I'm not going to come in there and say that I taught them a whole bunch of stuff. No, that wasn't the case. There were rare occasions where I was able to bring something to the table that they hadn't necessarily thought of. And I think that's true with like all technicians, especially when you go to a new place. You get into a shop, the shop's got a certain way of doing things, everybody's got their own little clique, everybody's got their own little niche, this person's good at this person's good at this person's not so good at this, and the dynamic works itself out in one way or another. In the case of a new person coming in, I would rather have somebody with some educational background, out there representing me, as opposed to somebody who claims that they can do the work. Am I saying that you can't get a job as a technician if you don't go to school? No, I'm not saying that, because you probably can, but it'll be a low-paying job. You'll get paid less than your equivalent who might have gone to school. I'm going to argue that. I'm not going to say that for sure, because each situation I'm sure is going to be unique and individual, but as an employer, I'm not going to invest top dollar into somebody that can't show me or demonstrate to me that they are worth what they're asking. You may be the most gifted person to ever pick up a wrench. Maybe that's you, okay? But until you can prove that to me, you're not worth anything. You're not worth anything to me. You're just there. You're just a warm body, and I may be trying to hire you in on the cheap, or hire you in part-time so I don't have to pay you your health insurance or something like that. It's somewhat frustrating to me when people say that they don't need an automotive education. And once again, I'm not saying you do need an automotive education, but I'm saying that you're probably handicapping yourself if you don't. And you would probably do much better if you did have an automotive education as opposed to not having an automotive education. So let me put it to you. What is your opinion on this subject? What is your experience with this? Did you walk into that job and 20 years later you're managing the place or running the place or whatever? Or was it a situation to where you couldn't get a job, you went to school, finally, you got out of school, and then you had your choice of jobs? Maybe it's something like that, I don't know. Maybe you hate taking ASE tests or don't feel that that's gonna give you any benefit, so you don't really care. So you've got nothing on paper, but you've got some mad skills when it comes to auto repair. Well, great, good for you. I'd love to hear about it. I'm gonna put the discussion back to you, and there also will be a link in the description to a discussion about this on my forum over at ericthecarguy.com to where we can talk this out a little bit more. But that's basically the general gist. Do you feel that you need an automotive education to work in the automotive field today? And what are your reasons for that opinion? Let's share it with class. Let's all talk about it a little bit. Anyway, I am Eric the Car Guy. You can always find me at ericthecarguy.com, as mentioned about the forum a little bit earlier. If you have automotive questions, I would ask that you type a couple of keywords into the search function at the top of the page. Just so happens you might get an answer that comes up right then and there. But if that's not the case, feel free to sign up for our little website and forum. It's absolutely free. All you need is an email address. Just be sure to respond to the confirmation email, which should end up in your inbox. If it does not, then check your spam, bulk folder, those kind of things. But you will not be able to complete your registration until you click that activation link. So definitely look for that. And then once you've completed your registration, feel free to head over to the service and repair section over at our forum and post your automotive question there, and we will do our best to help you. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter. Also links in the description. And I close my videos with, be safe, have fun, stay dirty, and I say, stay educated. I'll catch you later.